In the year 7777, after the death of King Solomon, the streets of the White Pearl filled with music and whispers. This city was unlike any other city of the seas, for it was a jewel built upon a coral island. Its walls were polished with pearl and mother-of-pearl, and when the sun rose, the colors of the sea danced upon them, as though the city itself was made of light. On that day, within a palace overlooking the sea, the first cry of life rang out. Sinbad was born. Yet that cry was woven with another sound, the weeping of his father, Marwan, the great merchant, for he had lost his beloved wife during childbirth. In a small chamber of the palace, Marwan held the child in his arms. The boy's hair was black as the night, and his eyes shone sapphire blue, as if a fragment of the sea had been given to mankind. Marwan smiled with sorrow and whispered, "You shall be Sinbad, to live as the sea itself lives, bound by no shore, stopped by no wall." Far away, in the city of Afghan, capital of Solomon's kingdom, an old sorcerer with long white hair stood upon a high tower overlooking the river of life. He raised his gaze to the heavens, read the stars, and spoke in a trembling voice. "Another chosen one is born. The world will never remain the same." No one heard him, save the wind whistling through the stones of the tower. Sinbad grew in a palace filled with servants and maidens, yet his heart was lonely. His father traveled often, leaving behind halls glittering with golden treasures, returning months later laden with goods. The boy spent his days on the balcony overlooking the harbor, watching ships drift in and out of the port. He had an old attendant, Jamal, a kind man who loved the boy as his own. One evening, Sinbad said, "I feel the sea speaks to me. It tells me what is to come." Jamal laughed, resting a hand on his shoulder. "The sea does not speak, my boy, but perhaps it loves you." And from that day, Jamal called him Son of the Sea. Marwan saw his son's sharp and balanced mind and summoned the finest teachers of the White Pearl. The first, Yusuf the Wise, a stern man, taught him letters and numbers. He would say, "Letters are another sea, and whoever knows them will never be lost." The second, Radi the Navigator, an old sailor, taught him the secrets of stars and winds. At night, he would point to the heavens. "Look there, Sinbad, the northern star. So long as you see it, you shall never lose your way." The third, Samir, a merchant and friend of Marwan, taught him the tongues of men. He often repeated, "He who knows the languages of men will find every market open and every bargain his own." Sinbad absorbed every lesson with astonishing speed. Once, he drew a small map of a nearby island using seashells and pebbles from the harbor. Yusuf the Wise marveled at it and said, "This child does not learn. This child remembers what the sea has always known." Another day, a servant's child went missing near the harbor. All rushed to search the streets, but Sinbad stood still and said, "He is by the rocks nearby, where the crabs hide." Jamal ran there, and indeed found him. They asked, "How did you know?" Sinbad smiled. "The sea told me." Another day, fierce winds struck the city. Sinbad warned of a storm hours before it came. The sailors laughed at first, but soon believed him when the harbor groaned and ships trembled in the waves. At sunset, he loved to sit upon a high rock, watching the sun sink into the horizon. He would whisper to Jamal, "It is as if the sea swallows the sun, only to return it by morning." And Jamal would smile and reply, "Perhaps you, Sinbad, shall one day return the sun yourself." Sinbad rarely played with the city's children. Instead, he watched them from afar, as though he were a stranger among them. His blue eyes always drew attention until it was said, "Eyes that know the way." He delighted in collecting tales from sailors of wondrous islands and sea beasts. At times, he would hide in the harbor, helping workers with their crates, just to learn about goods and their worth. And so his early years passed until he reached 7, a child raised among pearls and gold, among teachers and sages, yet his heart remained bound to the sea. He waited for the day his father would grant him passage on a ship, to learn whether the sea would still whisper to him when he sailed beyond the shores of the White Pearl.